We're planning to produce these webinars on a regular basis at Olive, and the best way for you to learn about the next one is to sign up for our newsletter, follow our industry discussions on our website, and to follow us on Twitter. And I'm going to push links to each of those items in the chat window during today's webinar, so be sure to grab them there. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we're fortunate to have a terrific speaker for today's webinar. Chuck Blevins is the Manager of New Platform Development and Technology at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And our partnership with Chuck and the AJC is largely driven by the innovative vision that Chuck brings to the table. And as you'll hear in Chuck's presentation, the AJC and Olive continue to experiment with new ways to enhance and enrich the e-edition subscriber experience. Chuck is here today to share some of the details about what the AJC is doing on this front and the role Olive plays in their ongoing success and experimentation. So I'll turn control over to you now, Chuck, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Olive webinar.
Thanks, Joe. I'm happy to have everybody on the line. Some kind words. I'm with the AJC and Cox Media Group, which comprises the AJC as well as the Austin American Statesman, the Dayton Daily News, and Palm Beach Post. We work in a centralized and decentralized manner, and we'll walk you guys through some of the different things we are doing from content, from marketing, and overall process sides to kind of give you a sense of what we're attempting to do with the app and give you all some ideas on how you guys can make better use of it as well. So,
hey, Chuck.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm seeing your screen, I think maybe because I'm set up as a presenter, but on my other computer I'm not seeing it. Have you set it up to share your desktop?
Yes, I did. So let me see. Let me resend.
Okay.
Okay, so it says I'm showing.
Okay,
Are you able to see it?
I see it on my main computer, but not my other one. Can somebody weigh in on the chat window and let us know as an attendee if you're able to see it? Okay, I'm getting a message from others saying that they can see it. So my fault. Okay. Sorry for interrupting you, Chuck. Go ahead.
Oh, no, good. So to kind of set the ground for this, even though the Olive apps are digital apps, it's really best not to consider the edition in the same way you would your digital apps or your website. As far as the readers are really concerned, it is the newspaper, and that's the good and the bad of it. They're looking for that newspaper experience. They like the finiteness of it, so bringing it to them and just simply a different platform is a real benefit. So from that regard, for those of you who have seen shrinking footprints for financial reasons or whatever, this is a way to re-engage those former newspaper readers who would read you if they had access to you, to reach other traditionalist people, and really still be able to reinforce the newspaperishness with some, digital magic and some additional pieces in there that helps reinforce what it is and reinforce the experience. But in the end, the way you're going to metric, which we'll talk KPIs down the line and so on, really will reflect, you'll find, on the physical product. So try to change slides here. There we go. So our overall strategy is really about improvement over time. We want to enhance their experience. We want to keep them engaged and improve the engagement because that improves registration for your digital products, keeps the value proposition for subscription sales as well as retention, and we also use it to help move people around within the orbit of our overall digital products, our other digital apps, and so forth. It gives the folks who are much more traditional about paper a launching point into more digital aspects, and helps them transition for things to come. Our primary methodology in using this, it covers a couple ways. We treat it as kind of our replayed edition. We also provide additional digital-only pages and special sections. So from a replay standpoint, we've got a way to put the late sports scores in. We can update the front page. We can make additions that we cannot manage for the physical product because of logistics constraints. Olive allows us to push this through. We also have regular features. For this season, we've been doing extra Braves pages in our sports section that were digital only. We also have special sections as things come through. And what's great about them is you build them like the physical paper within your CMS, so the jump lines and so forth still work and update. We did bonus content. Atlanta had a major snowstorm, which I'm sure as many of you heard was all of a whopping 2 inches, although it was sheer ice, which shut the city down for a good while. We took that advantage and did a four-page insert of photos that we couldn't have fit into the main paper. Additionally, ours is a paid product. We turned off our authentication during that week as a public service to allow people into all of our products, and saw massive spikes in use on there. We also put in advertorial content. Our 6 times a year magazine that serves our Atlanta in-town area is also inserted in there. So all these work to reinforce subscriber benefits by having this piece and allow us to package and send things across. As we're going forward, as we bring out a responsive games portal or improve our interactive section on our paid website, we're able to link from those products. Link to those products from the Olive products as additional enhancements and move things around. So some of that strategy is also to look at what have we lost over time because of shrinking newspaper sizes or overall reader interest, and we can bring those categories back into the apps, if not directly within the replica itself, then within the framework. So beyond those things, obviously we built this app. Building the app and throwing it out is like knocking a tree down in the woods. If nobody's there to know it exists, you're not going to hear it. Marketing and lifecycle marketing are key to all of this, and any app you have. So that for us starts at subscription. We have onboarding emails and an onboarding process to encourage digital registration and the passwords, which is what allows people to get into our products. We also drive the use of the other products. Our lifestyle marketing is set up to watch where people are in the funnel and message them on the appropriate call to action. So when you first purchase, it's going to say, go register. If you've registered and you haven't used a product in a while, you may get a message talking about, hey, check into the product and authenticate. We have a daily email that goes out. And this has been one of the most effective measures we have taken. And I wish it was my idea, but it was marketing. Every morning we send out an email around 6:30 a.m., between 6 and 6:30 a.m., that grabs the front page from Olive's repository and has links to go open the app. And we saw, once we started out this, a big plateau uptake of daily opens from that email. Many of our readers use that email to open the product. It links directly to the HTML5 or the ODE, and you can set up a custom code such that if you're in iPad, it will open the app to the front page as well. And we hear about it when people don't receive the email. That's how they get that habit, and they've been acclimatized to it. So that helps reinforce that repeated piece and getting in and building the habit and using your LCM to help keep that set and in the user's mind is critical. Additionally, within the product and our other digital products, we market all of it. So the Braves baseball player you see here in this slide is on the front of our website, which talks about digital day passes, the equivalent of our single copy sales, and referring folks to today's paper. We call today's paper the Olive products, all 3 of them, under that title, to push people through. We tout what the special sections are and what people are missing. And within the product, you'll see this large blue page here. This is actually a printed page. This shows up in the print edition that you receive once a week. And the top little blue banner tells people that if you're reading it in today's paper, the links are active. Inside the Olive product, we have marked it up so that we can overlay video or photo galleries or force the URLs to link to the right places so that we've got the interactivity. And in this case, we're touting stuff going on in our other paid products and really looking at kind of what the key value proposition amongst all of them are. And I'll say part of the reason why we care about doing this is not to split the audiences, but if you're like us, our broad readership is in the morning because of that 6 a.m. call and other pieces. So we have to make sure that is ready to go, and we also want the afternoon taken care of. And push that out in our later products. Here's another example of the pages. We try to keep them fairly thematic so that we can hit the topics people are interested in. It is generally within our other paid products, but if it's something really interesting going on the free sites, we can do that too. I should note down at the bottom, you'll see the little icons for the sharing. We've marked those up, so those will link to the Twitter account or to the Pinterest account so people can follow us there. Our marketing creative builds this up. You can mark it right up in InDesign and send it out as an interactive PDF very quickly. And we do that early in the day since we know it's running, so we don't run into production issues. Speaking of production issues, obviously we've got a bunch of wheels in motion here. Planning and communication are key for a number of reasons. First off is we're really doing this outside of Olive's normal process. And Olive, to their credit, has been very game to work with us and help us kind of figure out what's going to work from a very ad hoc basis. So a lot of that is emailing daily production and making sure everybody at our sites are clear on what's going on. Cox additionally has a bit of another hurdle. We work in both centralized and decentralized manner. Our copy desk and some shared pages are done by a shared services group for all 4 sites, but other elements are done directly at the site. So you can run into problems where the site is sending an updated page for something and shared services is sending a special section, and everybody's got to communicate in. And production for Olive is getting a pile of emails saying, we've got this page to swap in for B1. Please take this special section and put it behind sports for 4 different papers and then for all 4 at once. So we've been working on ways to consolidate communication internally so we've got a clear budget of what's going on and be able to notify Olive so Olive has a clear budget of what's going on for them to check against so that we can avoid dropping any balls. Because it's ad hoc, accidents are going to happen, mistakes are going to get made. That's just the rule of the road. But part of this is for us to figure out how we can consolidate what we're doing back into our standard shipping process to Olive so that we have one send as much as possible and the variables drop out. But overall, communication with Olive has been very good, and they've been very, very willing to work with us in there. The key aspect of this, and I alluded to this with our 6 a.m. email, is the timing. We can't have a disapproach of our delivery time. Because the readers view this as our paper, we found they really expected similar delivery times that they were for the physical product. So if it arrived after drive time, after 6 o'clock, we'd where is this? So we have set it up such that we have a deadline that must be made essentially for that edition, and have talked with Olive and said, if we tell you we have special sections and you haven't received them by this point, go ahead and run the edition without them, and when you get them, cycle them back in so that we do not miss our delivery dead times. So, it's very much like the old print production. We've just gotten rid of presses for digital processing and so forth. So any processes you put in place, we want to clear on, what time you expect things out and how they need to work, because your personnel will have to back up from them. And you know how that goes. Add a new section in, it goes all the way back into the reporting production and those pieces. So having clear lines of communication and a clear budget, I'd say is highly recommended, especially if you can give Olive heads up well before time so their folks will know. We'll get emails from daily production saying, hey, you guys haven't updated the baseball pages. Are those coming? If they feel that somehow we're running a little bit later than usual for something ad hoc, which is great. So the partners you need to have within your company, besides having your print folks and your digital product managers, is your marketing team, as well as your print IT folks. Our folks have really leveraged our CMS. We use Digital Technology International as our print CMS, have really worked with us to leverage what it's capable of doing to help streamline the process. Because any new thing causes more work for your print production folks. Anything you can do to automate and push things through are key. So there's been back and forth with Olive and our IT folks in terms of how we can best do things, and that really helps. And because you're doing stuff differently, you're going to screw it up at some point. So it's easier to have a standard operating procedure that is really dirt simple as much as possible. But if your print CMS is like ours, your pages may not be finished till 12 or 1 a.m. And if somebody's going to mark them up so they have video overlay, that's going to happen at 2 a.m. That's more manpower and effort. So you want to work through those things and understand what the impact is on your labor to do them. I would say they are highly valuable. to do, however. This next piece kind of summarizes the hurdles I've talked about. So I said at the beginning kind of metricing and how we think these sections are valuable. But at the same time, I said you don't want to treat it like a digital product. So what I mean by that is you really don't care about whether the extra page you put in, how many page views it got that day. Because just like putting a new gardening section in your old legacy print paper, if it's in the paper for a lot of people, it's just going to get read as they move through it linearly, or it's not going to get read at all because Bob only reads sports. So having the same metrics that you would do for a print web story really don't apply here. Currently, what we're looking at is the overall value add. Are our visits over time increasing per week and month over month? Is the engagement from existing subscribers repeated enough? You know, how can we improve how often somebody accesses it? Likely, like the regular print paper, somebody's not reading it 7 days a week. They might only read it on a Monday and a Thursday. But as long as they're subscribing, we're happy. So we want to make sure we're putting things that are engagement and keep them coming back. So what I would recommend as things settle out and you're looking at this is look at the long term. Look at the month over month, the quarter over quarter to see what your trends are. Because these are really value plays, much like they were with the physical product. You're not going to be able to attribute a ton of new sales to a gardening section. But we do know you have a major snowstorm and you have a special section. Just the fact that you have coverage is going to include your single copy sales boosting. So the things that you evaluate your print copy with become very relevant in terms of how you evaluate the value and the cost of doing these additional pieces to improve your element. But to underscore, no matter what you do, make sure you've got marketing support. You are competing against every other app out there. And the people who love the paper don't necessarily know you're there unless you tell them. And even then, they're distracted. So telling them constantly and reminding them can be a service more so than an annoyance. And we've found that we had great opens from those pieces. So in the end, as you work over time, you will probably settle on some decent metrics to tell you whether the return on the effort was worth it. But resist trying to come back with just page views. If you guys look at your metrics, I think you'll see that as I read the paper from 1A all the way back, the reading habits are almost identical to print. You spike at section fronts, people bump just to sports, or they read all the way through, and those things are reflected in the paper. So enhance what people love about that and bring in things around the edges that add value without changing the experience radically. And we believe over time, those readers become more amenable to digital. But we also have people who want to read that product because of the paper, and they do it for the same reason that people still read hard copy books because Kindles are out. They enjoy the experience. So why not improve that? And with that, I'm going to open it up some questions. I hope I covered it all sensibly. I appreciate you all listening.
Chuck, that's terrific. Thanks very much. We have gotten a number of questions from the audience here. First up, let's see, there's a couple that tie into the email alerts that you talk about. And you mentioned that today's front page is in the daily emails. I was kind of wondering how automated that process is, or if there's a lot of manual labor required to grab the page and construct the daily email. And then one of the attendees just wanted to know, is the email alert that you send out when each replica is live an automated process or manual? So a lot of people kind of wondering about that.
Okay. So for first off, we use, I believe it is StrongView, who is our mailing service. So it is an automated email based on a template. We pull in the front page from a URL that essentially equals the first page of whatever today's edition is within Olive's products. And we do that for all four of the papers. That email goes out about 6:30 every morning, automated. So yeah, if we have a problem with connection or the paper's late, then you'll have an old image. So that's why the deadline times are very important to us. And we leave a buffer between the agreed upon posting range for Olive to account for overnight problems either on our end or Olive's end. It's generally about a 30-minute buffer before that email goes out automated, just to give us some room to fix things. So the manual process is building the template and making sure the template in your mailing system works the way you want it to. But after that, StrongView does an automated mailing. It even staggers times and so on to avoid ISP blocks for that sort of thing. So automated, uses the olive pieces, has a set time from there. Did I answer all parts of that question?
I think so. And if not, attendees, just go ahead and shoot me another message in the question window there. Next thing we have, and it's also related to the email blast that you send out. The question is that limited, are the recipients only your digital subscribers, or does your entire active database of subscribers receive that?
Right now, I believe it is all registered subscribers get it. So if you've registered once and you have the subscription level, you'll get it. There's an obvious opt-out link, so that you don't, but we do sell some subscriptions that have no digital, so we don't hit everybody who has a subscription with us. We try to aim it at least towards the group who we think is likely to respond from that.
Okay, terrific. A couple of logistical questions that came in. One was, is this being recorded and will it be made available later? And the answer to that is yes. So just give me some time to process it afterwards and we'll put it up on our website. And then secondly, related to that, Chuck, folks are wondering if you would be willing to provide a copy of your deck that we could post with this as well.
Certainly.
Okay. Next couple of questions, I think, get into some sensitive areas there, so I'll leave it to you to figure out how you want to answer them, Chuck. But they're related. The first one is, what is subscriber base compared to print subs? So in other words, if you can maybe even provide a ratio there without giving too much away.
The reality is it is a small subset to overall print, which is pretty much true of all of our digital products. A lot of that is working to, a lot of the marketing behind that is looking to improve that piece and that onboarding process that I discussed earlier around, all are really centered around improving those overall ratios. So a lot of what we're looking at internally is our engagement numbers, which breaks down where people in the process, have they ever, are they a digital subscriber? Have they ever registered? If they've registered, have they ever logged in? If they've logged in at least once, what's the gap between times they've logged in, so that we can understand where they are in that particular state and then work to message them to better incent them. But from what I understand from talking to the papers, is we're not atypical in terms of the fact that the overall subscriber base tends, for the print product, tends to be quite a bit larger than the paid digital base. And I would also say we do discern between, say, the free sites user base and the paid product folks. The paid product folks tend to resemble more, or have been, print readers. So a lot of the Olive readers are in fact existing print customers as well, and they use both depending on what their context is for the day. They may download it for offline reading, or today they want to read it digitally, and Sunday they may read the physical paper. So it's a mix of that. It is small. As a product owner, I want to be able to say, burn the paper. We're going to, support ourselves solely on this. We're not there yet. It's something that's coming along, and it's going to take a lot of marketing to help put out, and and making sure we're continually improving the products and what we put in them.
Okay. Next question, I think, is probably on a lot of people's minds as you talk about sort of the shift from print to digital. The question is, how have you reallocated copy desk staffing to accommodate the extra work? And actually, have you reallocated and redeployed people?
It is not solely for, let me restate that. We are using the same personnel. So I guess the short answer is we've got the same people doing a little bit more work. And define a little bit more how you like. But we have adjusted for them, and a lot of the process stuff we work on our side, and a lot of conversations I have with them is, how do we streamline that process? Because nobody has more people than they need. Nobody has more time than they need. Everybody's really, really tight. So part of it is really working out kind of what's your optimal process, and that's where working with IT comes in handy, and having copy desk involved in those discussions so they can tell you where their pain points are, and then you can look to see what you can do. So a concrete example of that is, because each newspaper has a different FTP for Olive to send the files to, if we're doing a shared MBA finals page. And by that I mean the shared services copy desk builds one set of 4 pages with no folio that every of the 4 newspapers will use. So they build it once for 4. Well, you would have to FTP it 4 times. And if it's a sizable section, that can take up not a ton of time, but enough that if you're on deadline and doing all the copy desk stuff you're usually doing, it can become kind of tight. So IT worked out a way where we could use one drop folder, and IT automated the splitting of it and sending the different pieces so that we can kind of identify what matters to us. So I would say, frankly, we don't do a lot of markup that does video on top of stuff in the stories, simply because you have to have the page completed, put it out, mark it up, and resend it. So we focus more on the internal pages and the overall broad content right now. It's a get we want to get to, but the reality of labor is there. How you may choose to do that is going to really vary depending on what your processes are and how they're sent to Olive and your timing from there. But, some of this too is we are watching kind of carefully to say we believe this is value, we believe this is value add, but we're watching over the months to say, okay, well, we're doing a regular section. Is it worth doing it week to week for labor costs? Overall, the sense I've been getting, because we've been tying it into how the print sections are being built, that it's made it a bit easier for them to move with it. So some of the pain points that we had up front have smoothed out because it's just like having a slightly larger paper, and the real pain points are the sending and pieces there, and those are things we can work to fix.
Okay.
But nobody right now has been dedicated just to deal with the digital product there yet.
Okay, good to know. Next question, can you talk a little bit more about the advertising partners that you work with, in particular inserts and coupons, and how is that working? Is it showing overall revenue growth for you?
Right now, we haven't been able to do a ton of that. We're really trying hard to, I think the inserts and coupons are one of those real gaps that newspapers need to watch out for, primarily because of digital native apps like Retail Me Not and others who are moving into this space. Coupons, especially grocery coupons and so forth, are still fairly something that's us and we're known for. We have been talking with our different advertising group sales folks to talk to individual vendors about getting those in there, and initial forays have been positive. But we don't have a global solution just yet for that. So right now, what I'm hearing from our advertising folks is having hard copy inserts of interstitials into the page, like a full page ad a major retailer might purchase, as well as them providing us our inserts, are things they're interested in doing. We have yet to really push that through yet. Reality-wise, I would have to see long-term what that meant for growth to really be able to report on the value on that. There's certain things that I kind of consider pay-to-play, that just this is what equals a newspaper to me, and we kind of need these things. So if we can find ways to get them in, I think even if it didn't necessarily cause a massive upraise in newspaper purchasing, it would still go to the play to the overall. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that on there. We're still playing around the edges on that. But my advertising sales guys tell me the retailers are definitely interested.
Okay, and I realize we're at the bottom of the hour here. I wanted to see if I could slide a couple more questions your way. You okay with that?
Sure.
So on the email you send out, do you use a smart link URL to determine the device, or do you have the same link and just offer separate buttons based on what sort of a device someone's using?
We do a little of both. The link that we have on there is smart in a couple ways. What it does is it actually automatically logs the user in, so they don't have to sign in when they click the thing. When it's going through the authentication gateway, our vendor, which is Marketing G2, does a device detect. And based on the device type, we'll punt the reader to the HTML5 if they're on an Android tablet, to the desktop if they're on a laptop that can support Flash. The iPad is tougher because there's no clear way to do that. So at best what we can do is, and you would need to work this into a build with Olive for the native iReader, is you can create effectively your own URL for it. It's this funky formulation of the URL, such that if the app is installed on the tablet, it will launch the app. The downside is that they don't have the app and they're an iPad user, but they read your HTML5 product. It won't auto-launch that unless they go through the standard URL. So it's still not super. Olive's own apps, too, recognize Apple devices, so they will route them to the proper place if MG2 for some reason is screwed up. But we do have a device detect up front to do that. So SmartLink logs them in, which allows us to do campaign tracking and understand who plugged in, and then the authentication process, as part of the way it works, does a redirect based on the device type.
Okay, terrific. And I apologize that I haven't been able to get to everybody's questions. There have been a lot here. And what I'm thinking, Chuck, if you're game, maybe what we could do is just a separate article that you could answer some of these questions, and we could post it on the website. How does that sound?
Yeah, that'd be one. That sounds good.
So I have one more, though, for you, and it's actually my favorite one. I saved the hardest one for last. It just came in. And the question is, are there any strategy or content failures you've experienced that the audience can avoid?
You know, content failures, I think, tend to be more along the lines of similar non-delivery. Things aren't done in time because we produce things too late to get into the processing queue to make it. So the equivalent of missed delivery time is high up there. We have, run into some occasional systematic issues, but I can't think of anything content-wise that just flopped. The good and the bad of that is because it's like the physical product, if nobody reads that gardening section you put in and they just skim by it, it's not real obvious. So understanding what's getting you your lift and understanding where things are going and all that is relevant. And the upside is that same software that does the page views and the visits that I say not to necessarily pay attention to on a daily basis, you can look at over time and see, is there spiking or is there more reading into that? The one thing I had suggested with the additional content stuff, and I've said this to our advertising folks too, because you're building it like you normally look at your regular physical paper, you're building it to the 18 by whatever physical piece of the product. But when they're looking at it online, it's maybe 8 inches tall. So if you're doing a special section, you don't necessarily have to build it on the same grid and the same type size. You can build it to reflect the screen that it's in. Same thing with advertising. They don't necessarily have to do with 8-point type. They can treat it more like a display that isn't necessarily meant to zoom in on. So you have some play in those areas to go with that. But overall, I'd say photos are always pretty good. It's tough to say. I haven't had a ton of feedback from the readers to say we didn't like this or don't do that. The downside about a lot of that is if it is a failure, it's going to be a lagging indicator because we're looking at our overall lift. I think at worst right now we'll see things don't move the needle versus having an impact on the overall value, but it's a tougher thing to follow.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you very much, Chuck, for the terrific overview of how AJC is leveraging its e-edition with Olive's technologies. And I'd also like to thank all of our attendees for taking the time out of your schedules to join us today. Again, please keep an eye on our website and sign up for our newsletter and follow us on Twitter at Olive Software to keep up on the latest news services we're offering, as well as information about future Olive webinars. Thanks, everyone, and have a terrific rest of your day.